Good time of day to you. This time right now, I am going to go over how to make a game of Breakout using Unity and Playmaker. For our minimum viable product, we will need one play zone, okay, because we're going to need an area for this thing to take place in. We're going to need a ball or something to move back and forth and hit bricks and bounce around our play zone. We're going to need a paddle that we can move back and forth to hit that ball to continue to make it be in play. We need bricks to destroy and a reset zone. That way if our ball leaves the area, it gets reset and we can continue playing. So first thing I like to do is go ahead and just set up my play area and just figure out what I want this game to look like. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and start out just creating some things like a sphere, because I know I'm going to need a sphere. In fact, I'm just going to recall this, rename this ball. This will become my ball. I'll also go ahead and create a cube. I'll move this one down just a bit and shape it. This could become my paddle. Paddle. Okay. And then I'm going to make a couple materials just because this white is really annoying. So just really quick, create material, call it red. Do this a couple times so we have some different materials to work with. Blue. Gray, and some other material. Alright, so we'll make the blue one blue because, you know, that kind of works. I mean, I suppose we could make it red, but then, you know, we'd think it's blue because the name's blue. We probably want to make this one gray since that's its name. We'll make this one red because, again, duh. And then we'll make some other material something else, like that ugly color. Look at that color. That is beautiful. I love that color. Alright, whatever. Alright, so now I've got a paddle. I've got a ball. I think I'll give my paddle a blue color. And I'll give my ball a green. There. No, I don't like that. Let's give it the red color. There, that works. Okay, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and set up a simple play zone. Now, if we think back to what Breakout actually looks like, and we pop open a tab. So we said Breakout. Breakout was pretty much 2D. There was no perspective, no three-dimensionality to it. You know, so we can do that if we want. You can leave three-dimensionality in it with perspective. It's not really going to change what we need to do. See, there it is. Breakout. Pretty simple. Fantastic. But I'm going to do it anyway, just so we can figure, hey, maybe we want to change the camera somehow. Alright, if we're going to be doing this, one thing we're going to want to do is pick a specific aspect ratio to kind of work in. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to be working with your game like this, and so you're going to make your play space fit this aspect ratio, and then you're going to give it to somebody, and they're going to play, and you're just going to have this area here to play in, and all this crap here is going to be empty. So it's going to be kind of useless. So set your aspect ratio to something that you can work with. Okay, so I'm going to take my camera, and I'm going to change its projection to orthographic. That way it is flattened now 2D. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of move it around until I have what I think my play space should kind of be. Right now I'm just kind of looking at the size of my paddle and ball because that's going to give me an idea of how far I can move left and right and how my ball is going to move through the space. So I'll take my main camera, and with it in orthographic, instead of pulling it back, because that's not going to make a difference, right, because there's no perspective distortion. It might make a difference if, say, you go on the other side of the ball, because then it's no longer in front of the camera to be seen. Okay, but it doesn't matter where we put it far back, as long as it doesn't go beyond the clipping plane. So what we need to do is change the size. There we go. Okay, so we change the size. We may have to move this up there. Alright, so now that I have that camera set up, now I can kind of better make my play space. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get some simple cubes. There's a cube. Put it like here and just make it nice and humongous. I'm just going to move it back a bit. Something like this. Then I'm going to give it a non-annoying white material. Say like, oh, gray, much better. Alright, something like that. And you can see here it's just on my edges. And I could, make it extra big and go across the edges, but I'm going to leave it like that. And then make some walls. Okay, maybe I'll give these, now I'll make another material. We'll call this one like wall or something like that. And we'll make it pretty gold color. And we'll just put that on the wall. That way we can see it here. We don't have to, but it just makes things nicer. And since this number is almost 20, I'm just going to go ahead and actually make it 20. Negative 20 for this side, 20 for this side. Fabulous. Oh, look at that. Greatness. Okay, then I'll do the same thing here with the top. Let's put that back to there. Move it up. Squish it down. Spread it out. Oh, greatness. Check that out. Now I have a play space. Okay, if I were to press play, nothing's going to happen because none of this has anything happening to it. Okay, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these cubes here, put it under that cube, and make sure he is not a child of the main camera. I'll just call this like play space or something like that. Play space. That way if I ever want to move the play space or hide the entire thing, I can only just use the parent and not have to worry about clicking all the walls. So that's what I did there. Alright, fantastic. Let's make another object, cube. So this time not a child of play space. This cube is going to be a brick. Make sure my scales are, not stupid like they are now. There we go. Where's my brick at? There's my brick. So let's make it more brick-like. Oh, man, that was tough. But I did it. Alright, I'm going to put some other material on it. There, now it's green. Looks great. Alright, so now I'm ready to start really placing stuff and getting my ball moving. Okay, one thing I'm definitely going to want to do is take my walls here and just make sure that they are more like this. If you don't want lighting and shadowing, you can turn off the light. Well, turn off the shadows. There's no shadows there. You don't have to worry about it no more. I'm just going to leave mine on. Okay, but we want to make sure that these walls come out far enough from where our ball is. That way they actually, where the ball hits the walls instead of going right past them. Okay, so one thing I like to do is always look at my positions. Okay, my ball is at position, well, it's at 0, 0, 0. Paddle's probably at 0, negative 1 something. So with these ones, we probably want to make sure they are 0 as well, except we probably want to do our play space. We'll do our, I guess the play space is going to have to be offset just a little bit, and then we'll just move these guys back. So if the whole play space is offset in the negative z direction 2.5, that means each of these has to come forward 2.5 in order to make up the difference. Or negative 2.5, I guess. Negative 2.5. Totally looks wrong. Either way, close enough. Alright. At this point, we've got all of our basic shapes that we're going to need. Now we can start adding FSMs to them to make these guys do things. Okay, other things we're going to need is a rigid body for our ball and our paddle. Okay, the reason we use it for the paddle is we will make that rigid body kinematic just to make it easier on the physics system. Otherwise, it's going to treat this paddle as being a static collider. It has a box collider. It's going to be a static collider, and every time we move its position, Unity, or rather the physics engine, is going to have to update the collision, and that's expensive. So we make it a kinematic rigid body, and it doesn't have to worry about that. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and throw a rigid body on my paddle. I'm going to turn on is kinematic and turn off gravity. then I'm going to grab my ball, and I'm going to add a rigid body as well. Okay, except this one I'm just going to turn off gravity. And I could turn down this mass to 0, or this drag to 0, because I'm going to want my ball to just kind of keep bouncing around as much as it can. Alright, now the reason we turn off gravity is because otherwise the ball is just going to fall, because, you know, gravity. So we turn it off. Now it won't use gravity. Another thing we want to do on our ball is we're going to want to freeze the X position. That's going to prevent our ball from going in this direction because of physics. We can still move it in this direction, it's just the physics, when it runs into stuff, won't allow it to go in that Z direction. That way it stays confined to our play space here and doesn't come floating over here somewhere. Alright. That looks good. We got that. Alright, so what do we want to do first? Let's say we want the ball to go ahead and move in some direction. Alright, so I'm going to open up my Playmaker editor. I'm going to put it down here. Oops, that's not the editor. Here it is, there's the editor. Put it down here so we can see it all on one screen. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add an FSM to this ball. Call the FSM ball, have caps lock on, ball, move. Okay, and here in state 1 we're just going to set this guy on his way. And because we're using a rigid body, we're going to use get, or rather set, velocity. So we can set the velocity of this guy. Velocity is physics. Okay, can't do set speed because speed is simply a magnitude. In order to make this ball move, we need to give it a magnitude and direction, and so that would become a vector 3, right? We're going to say move this distance in each of these directions. Okay, and to just keep things simple and expedient, we're just going to say, alright, I want you to move up, or rather left 10 units, up 10 units, okay, or rather that's going to be the velocity, and in fact the velocity will be something like 14 because of, you know, how math works. So alright, so let's see what happens. I press play and come on now. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh wait a minute, it just decided to hang out. Weird. But it did move. Oh, look down here. GUI window tries to begin rendering while something else is not finished rendering. Either you have a recursive on GUI rendering or previous I don't know what that means. Something is calling GUI. Okay, it's probably Playmaker here, so I'm just going to make sure I turn it all off. Alright, fantastic. Alright, now the reason my ball was dead ending up in this corner is because by default these colliders are not using any physics materials. Okay, the physics material determines how bouncy and how much friction each one of these objects has. Okay, right now we're using none, which is going to default to, I think it's something like not bouncy at all and 50% static or something like that. So what we want to do is we're going to now create a physics material. Okay, we'll call this one bouncy, and we will set the dynamic friction and static friction to 0, because we don't want our ball to be, you know, stuck on the wall or have any sort of friction that's going to slow it down. We also want this ball to bounce, you know, pretty much at the exact same speed as it bounced in with. Okay, so we're going to set this to be 1, so it's 100%, which means if the ball moves and hits the wall at 30 frames, or say, I don't know, 30 meters per second, it's going to bounce off at 30 meters per second. Down here where it says friction and bounce combined, this means when this ball interacts with this wall, how do we treat it? Well, what happens is it gets the colliders of both, and it will figure, based on these settings here, how to determine how to affect that ball. Friction combined right now is saying we're taking the average, so that means if this wall had, say, a friction of 30 and we have a friction of 0, well, what's the average? Well, it's about 15. Okay, we want it to be nothing, so we'll just say the minimum. Right now 0 is pretty far down, you can't really go much below 0. If we put it at -1, it just goes to 0. Okay, so we're good there. Minimum, doesn't matter if this wall is 1 or 1,000, we're going to go with the minimum, which would be 0. On the opposite here, we got bounce combined. Do we want to say bounce off of this, take R1, bounce off of him with 0.5 and come up with something like 0.75. No, we're going to go maximum. We're going to say whichever one is more, which happens to be this one because it's already 1. Alright, I'm going to take this material, this physics material, I'm going to put it on my pretty much everything. That way it all bounces, right? So I can select my paddle and drag that bouncy into the box collider. Okay, I can drag it out here and put it on, say, my walls, even though I'm not going to hit that wall. Okay, and as I'm doing this, you should see it does fill in. Okay, and then I'll make sure it's on my brick and on my ball. Alright, so now everything should be bouncy. I'm going to turn off maximize and hit play, and my ball should bounce. Boop, boop. Oh, yeah, look at that. I am a genius. But, I failed life. Okay, well now I got the ball rolling around, or rather moving around through my scene. I need to move my paddle around. That way I can hit that ball. Okay, so now I'm going to select my paddle. Add an FSM. We'll call this one paddle move. Okay, and what we're going to do with paddle move is we're just going to give him some actions that allows him to move from this side to that side. Okay, now in the past we've looked at ways that we can simply receive an input and then rotate an object by the result of that input every frame per second. Well, if we were to do that here or something similar, so instead of rotate, say translate, it will translate by the input per second. However, once it reaches the wall, it's just going to keep going, and we don't want that. We want our slider to stop there. We don't want that paddle to be able to leave the space. So instead of using translate, what we're going to use is get, or rather set position. Where did my, there we go. So here we'll call this one move. Okay, and in this state we're going to add a get axis input. Okay, we only need one axis. Which one? The horizontal. We're probably going to need to multiply it by something like 30, and then we're going to store it in a variable. Now I haven't created one yet, so I'm going to create one now. We'll call this one hori input, something like that. That way we know this is the value returned by our input. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do some math. So we're going to do an add, float add. Okay. What are we adding to? Well, now we're going to create a new variable and call it x position. Okay. And what are we going to add to this? Well, we're going to add this value to it, x or hori input, every second per frame. All right. What does this do? Well, it's just going to basically take this float variable and move it up or down based on whether or not we're using our axis here. Okay. What we're going to do with that is we're going to clamp it so it can't go outside of those walls, and then we're going to tell our paddle to set its position in the x direction to be equal to x position. Alright, so I'm going to come back in here, get my clamp, float clamp, because that's what we're using. What are we clamping? Not horizontal input, because that's this one. We want to clamp this, because that's where we're going to put into our movement or our set position. So it's going to be x position. Okay, now we get to pick our min and max values. I would suggest that those min and max values be, say, something where it keeps the paddle inside the play space. So mine looks like to be about 17.5 in both directions. So I'm going to say negative 17.5 and 17.5. Do note that the minimum value is the one with the, well, it doesn't have to be necessarily the one with the negative, but it's the larger negative. Okay, so we would not say 17.5 and then negative 17.5, right? We say the minimum value first, the one that's, say lower than the other one, and then the maximum value, which is the one that's higher than the other one. So now my paddle, or rather this value, can only go between negative 17.5 and positive 17.5. I want to make sure to do this every frame, because if I do it once, it's just going to be useless. Alright, after I've got all of that, I'm just going to go ahead and set position of what? What am I setting the position for? Move to bottom. I'm going to set it of, well, yeah, the paddle, the owner. Good job. And the only thing I'm going to change is this X here. Instead of being none, I'm going to say we need to be moving to wherever the horizontal position tells us to move. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and do this in world space, because if we look, this is indeed going back and forth on the X direction in world space. And we'll do it every frame. That way it keeps working. Otherwise it'll do it for one frame and then not again. So we'll go ahead and test that. Press play. Okay. So it's moving, but does it? Yep, it does not go outside of my walls because it is being clamped. Alright, so I'm almost there with my minimum viable product. Okay, I've got a moving ball, a moving target, what is this thing, a moving paddle. Okay, I've got a brick in play space, but now I need to make this brick die or do something when I hit it with my ball. And then I actually also need a space when the ball leaves this zone, goes down here and resets. Okay, so I'm going to make a quick empty. Okay, this empty will be used. There we go. This empty is going to be used to become our, I guess you could call it our kill zone. So we're just going to add a physics box collider, make this box collider all nice and humongous, so my ball will definitely go through it when it leaves the bottom. Maybe brick game object, call this one reset zone. Scale 10, 10, 10. There we go. Much better. Alright. And the reason I'm doing this, I could use a collider, but again, my ball wants to pass through into this zone so it can then do something. So we're going to make it a trigger. Alright. So now, when this trigger, what we're going to be looking for, make a new FSM. We'll call this one reset, I guess the reset FSM, or rest rather. Okay, we'll call state 1 waitin'. I guess we'll just call it waitin'. And here what we're going to do is we're going to wait for something that is tagged with this ball to enter it and then go and do something. Now I've not tagged ball yet as ball, so it's not going to work, so let's go ahead and do that now. See, tagged, untagged. I'm going to create a new one, call it ball. Fantastic. So now I can come back into ball and tag it as the ball. Okay, now in our kill zone here, right, we're waiting, and then we're going to do a trigger event, because we have a trigger collider, which means anytime a rigid body will pass into it, it will test to see if it is the correct thing, and if it is, then it'll do something. So right now we're waiting. The trigger event will be on trigger enter, meaning when the ball enters it, do the thing. What are we looking to collide with? Well, we're going to look and collide with the ball. Now one thing we're going to want to do is send the event, but also store the collider, because we're going to do some stuff in this next state to not the ball here, not the ball in general, but rather whichever ball entered my trigger zone. Okay, so we're going to send an event. We'll just say new event entered. Great, it's not being used, so click it. Oh, there's this. Alright, cool. So make a new state, do that. Oh, fantastic. And I'll call this state do the thing. That way it does whatever the thing you want it to. Alright, so we're also going to want to store this collider in a new variable. The reason we want to store it, again, is so we can do something to it here later on in a little bit. So we'll call this object entered. There we go. And the reason we're remembering this is so here in this state we can take that thing that entered us and kill it, destroy it, get rid of it, and then we can spawn a new one. Okay, so in the do the thing, we're just going to be simple and say destroy. Hey, look at that, destroy self. Okay, but is that what we want? No, we don't want to destroy self, so that's not exactly going to work for us. We want destroy object. Okay, what destroy object will allow us to do is take that object that we just stored in a variable and say, hey, you remember that object that we stored in this variable? destroy that thing. And there we go. Okay, we may want to go ahead and add a transition to have it finish and go back to waiting, but really what's going to happen at this point is nothing, because the ball's going to be going away and I'm not making a new one. So now, after we destroy the original ball, we'll go ahead and make a new ball. So make, this is called create object. Okay, what are we going to create? Well, we don't want to pull things from the hierarchy. Okay, because for instance, if I were to pull the ball from here into the game object to create, what's going to happen is, well, I already destroyed that ball, and this guy's going to be going and looking for that thing which doesn't exist anymore. So you'll get this null reference exception, and things will be weird and annoying. Okay, so instead of creating from the hierarchy, we always want to be creating from our project. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a prefabs folder, prefabs, and I will make my ball a prefab. Okay, and I need to do this that way when the resets thing happens here. Okay, it will destroy the ball that entered the trigger zone and then create a new ball. Right, so we'll say make a new ball at a spawn point. Okay, well, we haven't set up spawn points yet, so we could just give a position, although we have to understand that this will be in world space, so that means my thing might come all the way down over here or something. So what I like to do is say under my paddle, make a empty, and we'll call this spawn. Okay, and we will use this to be the location our reset zone will spawn the ball. That way, wherever the paddle is, that ball will spawn on top of the paddle. Okay, spawn looks good. Except we're probably going to want to just pull it up a bit. Otherwise, that ball's going to spawn right in the middle of it. So, there we go. Alright, so let's see what happens. We go bloop. The ball moves, goes down, and up. Alright, way cool. Good job. Now we can play forever. And then I believe the last thing on our list is our brick, because we have a play zone, a moving ball, a moving paddle, and a reset zone, but no destroyable bricks. So let's get on that. Alright, so this one's going to be super difficult, right? We have a brick, we're going to add an FSM. We'll call this one wait in to die, and we're just waiting here. Or actually, we'll call this one brick. We'll call the state waiting to die. That's what we want. Waiting to get hit. Okay? And in this state, all we're doing is we're waiting for the ball to run into our object, and then we'll do the exact same thing we did when we did our reset zone. Okay? So in my action browser, I'm going to look for, this time, collision event, because this is a collider and not a trigger, and we want to keep it that way. That way my ball can bounce off of it. If I make it a trigger, my ball just will pass right through it. Okay, so we'll call this one collision event. Okay, when the ball enters our zone when we collide. Send an event. We'll call the new event collided. Doesn't go nowhere. Okay, so now we add the transition, add the new state, make the transition go to the new state. Okay. Now, we do not necessarily need to, actually we do, because, oh no we don't, because this brick's going to destroy itself, it's not destroying the ball. So, okay, we wait to get hit, we come to our action browser, and this time we can use destroy self. Destroy self. That way what it says is, okay, the ball hit me, I'm just going to go kill myself, and just get rid of the evidence. Okay, so I press play. Oop. Oh, really horrible. Alright, let's do that. How about right there? Right at, oh yeah, the brick goes away. Fantastic. Now we just need more bricks. 2 brick, and then 4. Yeah, this is just duplicate. Look at that, fantastic. Look at that, it was bricks, just crazy. Alright, let's play. Boing, boing, bang, bang, boom. Boop. Oh, I'm bad. I'm still better. There we go. So there we go. Minimum viable product. Moving ball, moving paddle, destroyable bricks, and a reset zone. That is it.